Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic. And today's comic is Giant Size Avengers, issue number 2, dated November 1974. I think this is the first Giant Size comic that I'm going to be covering. And this is a dandy. This was a really fun read. It's an enjoyable experience, both from a storytelling point of view and also from an art one, because both the complexity of the story and the artwork with it really is something that's a lot of fun. It's hard to put it into words. There were actually production issues that normally would sync other comics with this issue, and they are visible because the art style changes basically from Dave Cockrum to Neil Adams. And I'll talk about some of those production problems when I go into the comic. We see the cover. The cover's a pretty good one. It's definitely one I would have picked up. I kind of like the image of the two antagonists, Kang the Conqueror and Ramatut here, kind of standing together almost like an Egyptian statue here, as they have these very stern looks at the Avengers here. I get the feeling that Don Heck probably worked on some of the art. Also, should be noted with the Avengers is that Captain America makes an appearance on the cover, but he doesn't actually show up in the story. His place actually should have been taken by Thor. And we see Iron Man here. This is during the Iron Nose era, where for about a year and a half, Marvel artists were drawing Iron Man with a nose. And I believe that happened because someone in the Marvel office mistook a statement that Stan Lee had made. I believe Stan Lee was musing about, Iron Man not having a nose. And someone in the office had heard this remark and took it as Stan Lee wants Iron Man with a nose. And apparently what had happened in the Marvel offices when Stan Lee would visit for he'd visit maybe once or twice a year at that time, he had started asking why did Iron Man have a nose? And then that's when they kind of realized they kind of goofed. And I'm sure there was a lot of buck passing at that time. Okay, cover, as I mentioned, it looks like John Romita and Don Heck here. There are serious consequences here. An Avenger does die, as we're told on the cover here. So I'm going to go into the comic itself and take a look at the creative team and talk about the creative process involved in this issue. The writer is Steve Englehart. This is one of his best comics, both in terms of the Celestial Madonna arc and just a single issue here. Dave Cockrum did a great job with this artwork. The faces just look terrific. That's one of the things I always praise about Dave Cockrum is his ability to draw these beautiful faces. And there's also really impressive action in it too. And we see Bill Mantlo was involved with the coloring, and Roy Thomas was the editor. Roy at this time was really overworked. So the editor of this comic was actually Steve Englehart. So anyway, I'm going to talk about some of the production issues with this comic. When Steve Englehart brought in Dave Cockrum to draw this issue, the Celestial Madonna story arc had already started. It had started in issue 129. So Dave Cockrum wasn't there from the initial inception of this very complicated story arc. So Dave Cockrum kind of came in a little cold. Now, he had done a couple of issues of the Avengers earlier, but those were largely done in one issues. So Cockrum may not have had a good feel for the characters at the time. Because apparently what had happened was that the comic that Dave Cockrum plotted was much different was different at times than the story Steve Englehart wanted to tell. basically, I believe from Steve Englehart's point of view, he felt that Cockrum may have misunderstood the script, or he may have misunderstood some of the action, because apparently there were sequences and panels that actually were cut out and switched and put in different places, because Steve Englehart didn't feel that the story flowed as well as it should have. And Steve Englehart kind of low-key blamed Cockrum for that. And toward the end, the artwork actually is in the hands of a different penciler. It looks like Neil Adams, or at the very least Neil Adams inking. And I believe some of these pages might not have been Cockrum's, or they may have been done, they may have been in the wrong order, and Adams had to fix the artwork. Apparently this was quite embarrassing for Dave Cockrum, because he felt that he had done the proper job and a professional job, and he felt that Steve Englehart kind of went behind his back to, quote, have the story fixed. Because the thing is that Englehart's also bringing in other professionals. So I can imagine, like, when Steve Englehart was talking to Neil Adams, because I got the feeling that Steve Englehart had gone to Neil Adams's commercial studio, and he might have been telling Neil, hey, listen, this guy kind of fucked up here. And, Adams is like, don't worry, we'll fix this guy's fuck-ups. And, Cockrum, who was a young artist at the time, had a lot of pride, and he probably did not like that on a professional level. And Cockrum, I believe, never worked with Englehart again. So apparently there were some hurt feelings there. However, for comic book fans, this was a good thing, because Cockrum wasn't doing the Avengers title, he was free to do the X-Men. So I think in terms of comic history, it turned out to be the best thing. So I'm going to take a look at the story. It's called A Blast from the Past. Yeah, and this is, play on words on some of the characters that come in. We're told that this is the return of Hawkeye. Hawkeye has returned to the Avengers. The prodigal son has returned. Everyone's fifth favorite Avenger is back. And what had happened is that in Avengers 109, he had left in kind of a tough. Basically, he made his affections toward the Scarlet Witch known. Scarlet Witch let him know that, hey, I'm not into you, I'm into plastics. I'm into plastics, and you see that man with the red face? He's the plastic man for me. And because of this, Hawkeye had some hurt feelings. He had kind of strayed into the Defenders for a little while. So he was a part of the Avengers Defenders War, but he was on the Defenders side at that time. And I guess Marvel couldn't figure out what to do with the character. I don't know whether there was ideas of maybe Hawkeye going into his own title, because Marvel was expanding titles left and right at that time. But they didn't do that, so they returned Hawkeye back to the Avengers. We look at the image of the splash page. It is really good. Hawkeye has never looked cooler at this point, and some people feel that this is in many ways the definitive image of Hawkeye. If you want to find Hawkeye at his coolest, you're going to be looking at this image. He's doing something that's a little dangerous here. So he's a solo superhero. So he's going to go around fighting crime and kind of being a freelancer here. He's apparently not worried about rent and stuff like that. He didn't go to the Avengers saying, "Hey, listen, guys, I've been a good member in standing. Can you give me some some type of power pack where I can kind of fly around the city like Nighthawk, or can you develop some type of fluid, say Spider-Man with his webs?" No. Hawkeye had to go to Home Depot, and he's basically just tying a rope around himself and just swinging around from building to building. I really don't know how this works. But nevertheless, it does look great. One of the things, you get a few warnings as a reader. One of the warnings is that you'll need to read Avengers 129 first. So if some kid accidentally picked up this comic, Marvel's reminding them, hey, you need to spend that extra 25 cents and get this other comic off the newsstand first. However, despite this warning, for the most part, you can figure out what happened in issue 129 through osmosis, because the story does kind of recap the previous issue. And we go into the story. Hawkeye's swinging around. He's swinging into action, just like Spider-Man. And like Spider-Man, he comes across some jewelry robbers here, and they've been caught in the act. And they look surprised in a city filled with costumed heroes. These guys are surprised. What's going on here? And then you see kind of some kind of Green Arrow stuff where Hawkeye quickly pins one robber down while basically de-arming another. And Hawkeye's there, kind of going through some banter with these guys. One of the positives being a superhero, you kind of work on your banter a lot.
This is great banter. It really is.
So he's kind of just talking it out with these guys. Kind of like, listen, I know you guys are bad guys, but also, hey, I need a psychiatrist, I need a therapist, you need to hear me. We see Hawkeye, he just gives one guy a concussion here. The other guys are kind of like, just restrained. This one's just given a flat out concussion. And he's tied up, but he still looks unconscious here. Again, Hawkeye doesn't have any special communication with the police department. So he actually has to call them from kind of one of those emergency phone boxes that don't exist today, but something if you're a kid from the 70s you'd recognize. So anyway, turns out the police come. They finally come. Apparently they've been keeping Hawkeye waiting here. He's kind of complaining about this here, saying, listen, I may not have a job, but I still pay taxes. And hey, fighting crime, this is a we thing here. And if you're leaving me like kind of waiting uncomfortably on the corner here, you're not being a good we. The cop isn't hearing it. He's like, listen, I'm busy. Screw you. Now, the police officer mentions to Hawkeye how come he's not at the Avengers mansion. And Hawkeye reminds the police officer that he had quit the Avengers. You should know that, because this is really important. But apparently the police actually do get updates before they go on their shifts about the ongoings of the costume world or the cosplay world of fighting crime. So basically, like the police, they kind of have like their Mighty Marvel checklist, and they're letting them know, hey, we've detected a lot of action and a lot of static at Doctor Strange's mansion, and so be careful, look out for the Hulk there, because if there's something going on there, usually the Hulk shows up and stuff like that. So anyway, Hawkeye is now being told that there's some type of trouble, and the police officer is letting him know that it's Kang. Oh God, that effing Kang. He said Kang came to the mansion. He came to the mansion. He had basically fought and defeated and kidnapped all the members of the Avengers, and that he's gearing up for World War III. Now this poor street police officer, he knows this, but nevertheless he has to go back to his beat and kind of like process these jewelry robbers. So anyway, Hawkeye, he shows up. He sees the star that is over the Avengers mansion. Now what's going on here, apparently this star is an indicator of where the Celestial Madonna is. And apparently the Celestial Madonna is the 1974 version of the Virgin Mary. And whoever is destined to be the Celestial Madonna, and it's something that will be revealed itself to the world, that woman will marry a man who will give birth to the most powerful being ever. And Kang is setting himself up, so he's the one who's going to marry that woman, regardless of who it is. And he has three choices. Scarlet Witch, good choice. Mantis, nice little sex kitten, good choice. And then you have basically 90-year-old Agatha Harkness. And goddamn it, Kang is so thirsty for conquest that he will go into those tumbleweeds and do what he has to do to make sure that she's going to pop out, that really powerful kid. Kang has no standards. None. So anyway, Hawkeye is seeing this. It's letting us know that there's something going on with Captain America and the Falcon in issue 179. Something that Hawkeye is aware of, but it doesn't really spell it out. So anyway, Hawkeye, he enters the Avengers mansion. Turns out that they didn't change the locks or anything. So again, he's kind of happy to be home here. But he doesn't see anyone there. So the Avengers are gone, and no one else is there in the mansion. So Hawkeye's thinking, listen, rather than me trying to kind of handle this alone, solo, I'm going to call in the Fantastic Four, excuse me, and let them know that, hey, their assistance is needed here, because I'm a little bit outmanned. However, from behind, we see that Jarvis is there. And Jarvis is very upset. Yeah, he basically saw his employees, the most powerful team on Earth, basically get their asses handed to him. And he's and Jarvis is letting Hawkeye know what had happened in the previous issue number 129. Basically, Kang showed up at the Avengers mansion. He had some powerful macrobots. That's what Kang called them. And basically, these powerful androids were whatever power is thrown at them, they're able to absorb it and throw it back to the user. So basically, the Avengers, in some way, they were kind of fighting themselves in terms of type of power and the raw power that these three androids could deliver. So they got the male members here, and he was also able to capture the female members. And these are the three ladies, and this is kind of really the focus of his attentions. And he's basically Kang is kind of ranting here, I guess, to Jarvis. These guys always need an audience. They always need an audience. And basically, he's telling the audience that listen, wherever this star appears, the Celestial Madonna will be here, and I just got to wait it out and see which one it is. And this is how he plans on conquesting. So he's going to kind of marry his way into being the most powerful man in the universe. By the way, this marriage would be forced. None of these three women want to marry this guy. So anyway, Jarvis is finished with that recap. But he mentions that one member of the Avengers wasn't taken. And that was the swordsman. And apparently Kang thought so little of him that he did not view him as any type of threat. So he just simply left them there in the mansion. Just listen, dude, I have X amount of space, and I don't really need to make room for you, okay? So anyway, Hawkeye is kind of upset about this news about the swordsman, because the two have a past. They have a bond. Now they've never always been on the same side, because for quite a while the Swordsman was actually an enemy of Hawkeye and the Avengers. I think pretty much for much of the decade that he had existed up until this point. And it was really kind of a new thing where the Swordsman kind of changed his ways. Swordsman, he was a villain, but he was down on his luck. He wasn't doing well in the supervillain domain. He was powerful enough to take on the Avengers. So on one hand, he had a little bit of juice, but on the other hand, kind of people weren't really taking this kind of Errol Flynn type character seriously. So he's like down on the dumps. He's drinking. He doesn't care. And then suddenly Mantis comes into his life. Mantis, who it's been established that she is Euro-Asian, and I think, and it was also kind of established outside of comic circles that Steve Englehart had a thing for Asian women, and I think maybe that part was a little, maybe some beautiful Asian woman kind of grabbed Steve Englehart and said, "Listen, you can be more than what you are." And this inspired him. So this may have been somewhat autobiographical. Okay, Swordsman, he's also showing up with Ramatut. Ramatut was at this point a Fantastic Four villain. It was established that Ramatut actually was or is Kang, but from a different timeline. I honestly don't know how that worked, to be honest. I just accept it. It's fine. Hawkeye has some questions here because he's he has a debriefing of Ramatut from the Fantastic Four, but the thing is that this version of Ramatut is much older looking than the one he was told about. So he, again, like myself, Hawkeye doesn't quite understand the timelines here. Swordsman's just kind of just accepting it. He's just, listen, I'm just accepting my reality at this point. This is what I'm being spoon-fed. So anyway, Hawkeye agrees with Ramatut that they should go after Kang. And, they don't really have to bring in the Fantastic Four. Hawkeye is kind of unsure about this, because he knows the team around him. Hawkeye is a guy, he needs other guys to help him, and that's why he likes being in the group, because when he's solo, he realizes how exposed he is. Because prior to this, he was just stopping some basic robbers, but Hawkeye's sensing that he's going into something that's a bit more cosmic. And he's not sure. He kind of has his drunken friend here, who's a little bit of a dry drunk in this issue. He also has Ramatut, who kind of looks like he had left a Steve Martin sketch on SNL. And Hawkeye's like, listen, the odds aren't good. The goods are odd. The goods are definitely odd. But nevertheless, I'm going to help out. I'm going to do what I can. So some good dialogue here. Hawkeye says, "Okay, Ramalama Ding Dong, you're on." And again, I should mention, some beautifully drawn faces here by Dave Cockrum. Hawkeye, before he goes, he definitely wants to shore up the Swordsman, because he's concerned about the Swordsman's confidence. Hawkeye's one of these guys. He needs the people around him, but he also needs them to be on point. They can't be distracted or not focused in a fight, because Hawkeye knows he's gonna be in big trouble if the guys around him aren't on point. So he's mentioning, Hawkeye's mentioning, hey, the good old days back when we were carnies, just kind of ripping off the public in general. And Swordsman, he kind of doesn't want to hear that. He doesn't want to hear about the back in the day. He's concerned about what they are now. He says, we're not carnies, we're Avengers. But Hawkeye has kind of a more of a downcast assessment, saying, yeah, we're the two weakest ones. And the only guy helping us is this old goat wearing this bizarre mushroom hat. So Hawkeye, he's kind of like, yeah, dude, maybe say Avengers with a small A, not a large A or a capital A. So then we go to Kang. Kang at this point has a cloaked ship that he's using to go from continent to continent, because his plan is actually pretty international. So anyway, we see Kang here. He's ranting and raving. He has the three powerful male Avengers. They're currently, like, it looks like they're unconscious. They're still unconscious. They're also locked into the Macrobots. So it kind of looks like they're in an Iron Maiden. And apparently what's going on here is that since the Macrobots can absorb the energy of whatever superpowered being they're fighting, Kang has set this so they can just simply absorb their energies from within. So rather than having, say, Thor constantly striking the Macrobot, he's just going to have Thor in there acting as a battery. So basically these three Avengers are batteries. The ladies are also detained, but they're not going to be used the way the men are here. They're kind of like locked in these kind of stasis tubes here that has some type of mist. So I'm assuming that the mist is there, sort of negate their powers. Agatha Harkness is still unconscious, but Scarlet Witch and Mantis, they're conscious. They're watching what's going on. They're helpless to do anything about it because Kang has somehow negated their powers. And Kang is kind of giving a little bit of expository dialogue here to his audience. Hey, he's going to be sleeping with one of these women from his point of view. So he has to tell them everything he's doing because man, he wants to make sure they're impressed with him. And basically what's going on with Kang is that Kang wants to start a global nuclear war in 1974. And he feels that somehow the ensuing chaos will help him. And Kang will kind of like just pick up the pieces. So he's a little like Tony Soprano.
They fight, we pick up any crumbs from the fallout.
So anyway, Kang just kind of wants to pick up the pieces of what's left. Kang is a weird conqueror in that he'll conquer to the ruins. Like, he's not the guy who's going to go in where a place is initially in good shape. He wants to wait until they wreck themselves. And then Kang's going to conquer. Kang's kind of a bottom feeder conqueror, if you ask me. So anyway, by the way, this is one of the things I never questioned it, but again, this makes no sense what Kang's doing. He's just simply trying to put a notch in his belt. It doesn't help him with the Celestial Madonna at all, or figuring out the identity. So anyway, we take a look. We see the two women are thinking to themselves. Scarlet Witch believes she's probably going to be the Celestial Madonna. And basically, she feels this way because she's looking at her competition. And she definitely feels that she has higher status than these two. However, Mantis also feels the same thing, that it's probably going to be the Scarlet Witch, because she doesn't feel that she herself would be the Celestial Madonna. Otherwise, that she would sense it, because one of her powers is empathy, and she has a great deal of empathy for others. Although she's treating the Swordsman kind of badly here, I'll go into that. And with herself and with others, and she doesn't really sense anything going on with her. Agatha Harkness, they're looking like, holy crap! If it's her, we feel bad for you, Kang. So anyway, so it looks like Kang is heading toward the UN, And what he wants to do is he wants to kill the American Secretary of State, which is obviously a very high position, but I'm not sure. He may not have wanted to go for the president because at this time Steve Englehart's Richard Nixon, he was head of the secret empire. So I guess his politics at the time kind of confused things here. So nevertheless, Kang he lands in front of the UN. His ship is cloaked, so it's invisible to human eyes. So when the Macrobot, the one that's being powered by the Vision, appears, and this Macrobot is going to be the means in which Kang kills the American Secretary of State. So this is how his plan is proceeding. Again, some really nice artwork. The Macrobot breaks into the UN hall. Apparently the Secretary of State's giving some type of speech there. Then the two members of the Avengers, Hawkeye and Swordsman, along with Ramatut, who's incognito, they're transported to the UN hall. So Ramatut, obviously, since he's Kang and a scientific genius, he has this device that can transport the three of them to basically wherever Ramatut wants. So the two Avengers here are going to face off against a powerful Macrobot. The Macrobot alone is probably more than these two can handle, but one powered by the Vision is definitely going to be more powerful. Swordsman and Hawkeye, they both attack at the same time. It does nothing to stop the Macrobot. And in fact, the Swordsman points out that the Macrobot seems to be more powerful than it was during the initial first meeting. Hawkeye's a little stumped here. He's not sure how we're going to fight this thing. Swordsman basically admits, I don't have the faintest idea. So Hawkeye, that help that Hawkeye needs, he's not getting it. However, Hawkeye does have a plan in that he throws the Macrobot off balance. So it's one of those things where he doesn't really directly strike the Macrobot. Hawkeye is kind of second guessing himself, saying that he should have kind of maybe vetted Ramatut a little harder, because he had to accept Ramatut's explanations, and he didn't really explain much to Hawkeye why he's on their side. And the Macrobot recovers from Hawkeye's throwing him off balance. He swats the two guys. Again, really nice artwork here from Dave Cockrum. And we see the Macrobot is continuing to kind of throw both Hawkeye and the Swordsman off balance. He really should have marked these guys way earlier. But nevertheless, we're kind of treated some nice sequences here. I do see the first change in the artwork with this panel here. And what it is that the Swordsman is kind of doubting himself. So some of the doubts that Hawkeye had about Ramatut, and Ramatut's not doing anything, he's just watching the proceedings. The Swordsman is starting to have those same doubts. However, the Swordsman kind of talks himself out of this, because he points out, no, Ramatut was the guy who transported us here. We would never have been here without him. So I'm going to still extend the benefit of the doubt to him. And Hawkeye, again, kind of being thrown off balance this time by the Macrobot. Kang feels everything's going well. Now, at this point, the Secretary of State probably left the building, and I'm not sure whether Kang knows where he is. But nevertheless, Kang is fine with how things are going, even though he should be asking, hey, how come, my powerful Macrobot hasn't murked these two weaklings? Kang makes note of Ramatut, though he doesn't know it's Ramatut. He sees the guy in incognito. And he's saying, listen, this guy might as well have stayed at home. He ain't doing shit. Scarlet Witch reminds Kang that he did, at the very least, transport, the three of them into the UN to have this battle. And he said, and she's saying, listen, that alone should make him a somewhat formidable opponent. Kang's, in kind of a little bit of foretelling later on, says, to worry me, he would have to be my equal, Witch. And there is no such man. So yeah, this kind of Kang kind of boosting about maybe his prowess as say a would-be husband. But then we go back to Ramatut, and he's thinking basically about how he had gotten to this moment. It's a little confusing because this guy travels back and forth through time, and it's not always linear. It's not always linear. So basically, Kang was 60. He had pretty much conquered all the ruins that he could, any society that was already, heading down slope. That's when he would attack. He didn't want to bother with the ones that were, pretty well armed. But he realizes his life was empty. He doesn't really get much out of conquest anymore. It doesn't stimulate him. He actually did have a love of his life, even though he didn't really treat her particularly well. It's the same dynamic with Doctor Doom. There was that one woman who just was like kind of the love of Doctor Doom's life, and I think both women ended up in comas, and neither suspended animation, and neither one of them was able to free their muse from this medical condition. So Kang decided that he was going to retire from the conquest field. He figured all the low-hanging fruit is gone. I really screwed those guys over, so I'm just going to retire. So he decided that he was going to leave his futuristic, I think he's from the 30th century. No, the 41st century. And he returned back to what he felt was a happier time. And this is when he was Ramatut, a pharaoh in ancient Egypt. This is he really enjoyed oppressing these people, and and really ruling over them. So he returns because I think what had happened is that some of the events in the Fantastic Four had affected how long he had stayed there. Again, Kang and Ramatut, they go forward and backwards. I don't understand it myself. I just accept it. So anyway, Ramatut, he's 70 years old. He's been there for about 10 years. He's really enjoying himself as kind of like this benign, kindly conqueror of his people. However, kind of this musing from Ramatut ends, and he decides to become a more active member of this, battle. So he tells Hawkeye who is powering the Vision, and this is enough to cue Hawkeye into figuring out how to stop the Macrobot. Because the Vision his battery is solar powered. Hawkeye has kind of like this ink arrow, and it plugs right on the head of the Macrobot. So the head is basically blocked off from both the sun. So the Macrobot is blind. It doesn't have any other type of sensory to detect movement. And the battery is cut off from the solar power. And at this point, the Macrobot's just sort of lashing out. Again, some really nicely drawn artwork here. We see that it's still a dangerous situation for these three guys, because this basically android is kind of just firing blind. And they're just waiting for the battery to run out. And eventually it does. And these two guys, they can chalk up a victory against a pretty powerful opponent. both the one they were facing and the puppet master and Kang. We see that Kang is very angry. The word balloons reads expletives deleted. This is a callback to the Watergate tapes. When the transcripts of the tapes had to be made public, apparently Richard Nixon cursed a lot. And the White House was trying to figure out, okay, do we give him actually everything Richard Nixon said? Or can we kind of bleep out, these curse words? And they decided just to simply use expletives deleted whenever, President Nixon used a curse word. And this is what Steve Englehart is drawing from. Steve Englehart was really into politics in the mid-'70s. So anyway, Kang's plan A is failed, but he still has plan B and C. So he takes off from the UN, and he's going to head to, I believe, China. China's next on his list. But Ramatut knows this because Ramatut lived the reality that Kang is referencing. But this is the part I don't understand, is that Ramatut knows Kang failed in this. So why is he going back to make sure that Kang double fails? See, that's what I don't understand. I would, if you're Ramatut, you leave well enough alone. You're saying, listen, I failed, because there's no indication that this happened, that Kang married the Celestial Madonna based on what Ramatut is telling us. So he could have left well enough alone, honestly. But again, you just accept what you're given and don't think about it too much. So anyway, Ramatut frees the Vision from the Macrobot. Now the thing is that the Vision's still alive, but his battery is like near zero here. And so they need to kind of wait until he can recharge himself. I mean, he can recharge himself basically from the solar rays that just are naturally reaching the Earth, but it's going to take him time. Vision, he's a little surprised to see Hawkeye here, because they kind of left on bad terms. And it wasn't the Vision's fault. Hawkeye liked a woman, the Vision liked this woman, and this woman chose the Vision. So that's not the Vision's fault. It's not his prerogative, so to speak, to sort of let Hawkeye in. But nevertheless, Hawkeye he's kind of buried the hatchet a little here, because he seems happy to see the Vision. I think he's over his feelings about the Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye. Also, Hawkeye's like, listen, I need a powerful guy around me. And, okay, I got away with the swordsman here in this first battle. I know I might not be that lucky in the second battle, so I'm kind of happy to have kind of a powerhouse here. So anyway, so the two kind of they have kind of like a iffy past, because again, they were rivals at one point, but Englehart makes it clear that at this point these two are friends. So anyway, we see Hawkeye's kind of taking charge here, and he's saying, listen, we stopped plan A, you got to take us so we can stop plan B. And Ramatut agrees with him, saying, listen, I'll just use my transporter powers and I'll take care of this. And Hawkeye's going along with what Ramatut's saying, because Hawkeye was very suspicious of him, but apparently the more that Hawkeye is around Ramatut, the more comfortable he is with him. The Swordsman, he's thinking to himself, Avengers assemble. Again, he's kind of like, in his head, there's something else going on. The swordsman he's on a mission here. He's lost his identity. He doesn't see himself as the swordsman. He sees himself as a member of the Avengers, and it's sort of trying to kind of regain that self-confidence and self-worth that swordsman had lost in the previous issue. Now I'll talk about why he had lost that. Ramatut, he kind of reflects on what's going on. It turns out that when he was 70 as Ramatut, he started to become concerned about events that had already happened in his past that he knew did not come to fruition. So apparently he has to make double, triple sure that that this past, which didn't happen, doesn't happen. So anyway, so Ramatut was kind of focused on that. So he kind of like had a nice kind of I think 7 or 17 year rule, but then he seemingly passed away, and his subjects simply took it as him leaving them again to go to the afterworld. But in reality, Ramatut was just simply in a coma, and he was strategically placed in a way that he knew the swordsman would be in that tomb at that time. And that's when he kind of like awoke from this suspended animation that his subjects thought he had died. He was just in suspended animation. So it turned out swordsman, as Ramatut had known, because this is past history. The swordsman showed up. So apparently this guy was patient. He was patient, man. He was in suspended animation for centuries, just waiting for the swordsman to show up. It's kind of like when I was reading that issue of Ghost Rider, and the letters had, after 7 years, I'm starting to see some potential here. I'm like, dude, you are super patient. So anyway, so Ramatut leaves the tomb. He encounters the swordsman, and I think the swordsman kind of talked, and he kind of explained his plan. Again, you can see kind of the production issues, because Ramatut's coming out of this tomb, Egyptian tomb, and swordsman's like running out of the room. And I don't know whether that's something that happened earlier, or Dave Cockrum may not have understood what was going on. So anyway, we go back. Kang, he arrives in China's Forbidden City. So they are in China. And basically the second Macrobot is going to be unleashed. And I think he's just there to cause general havoc. One of the things I found interesting about this comic was that Steve Englehart never uses the word China. He'll kind of like make indirect references, kind of like the People's Republic or stuff like that. But he was reluctant to say China for some reason. I think for like 25 years, America basically pretended that China didn't exist. So anyway, Kang, his spaceship arrives in the Forbidden City. Next, Kang is going to unleash the Macrobot that's going to be powered by Iron Man, or Iron Nose here. And again, Kang is like, listen, I still want to keep my powder dry with Thor, but nevertheless, I know that you're much more powerful than the Vision, Iron Man, so I know you can do my job for me. So basically, Kang is just looking to annihilate the entire leadership of China, I should say. I'm sorry. I'm not quite sure whether the rulers of China, like Mao, they stayed in the Forbidden City or not. But nevertheless, that's what we're told here. So the Macrobot, powered by Iron Man. Again, this is some really nice artwork here. Is about to attack the Chinese ruling class. Kang is kind of ranting and raving. His expository dialogue is kind of educating the reader on what's going on. He's such a little Kang's a little nitpicker. He does the final inspection. He's kind of like, yeah, I gotta check this out, and then he kind of lets the Macrobot go. Now Kang's ship is invisible to human eyes, so when the Macrobot walks out of the cloaked field, it kind of looks like it just appears. And again, some really nice artwork. Again, Ramatut is able to transport the other members of the Avengers. Hawkeye and Swordsman still have to take the lead on this because the Vision still isn't fully powered yet. And Kang is still not worried because they had already beaten the first Macrobot, and they were much more handicapped that time than now, because at least they have the Vision here. But Kang's pretty confident. He kind of views them as just sort of insects who got lucky. He notes that the Vision is still kind of charging, and he's not worried about these guys. And again, this Macrobot is powered by Iron Man, so this is a stronger version of the Macrobot they faced when it was powered by the Vision. The ladies break in because Kang has his audience, and he has to impress one of these two chicks here. So anyway, Scarlet Witch isn't impressed with Kang's rantings, and kind of feels that he's kind of overly optimistic of his chances. Mantis breaks in a bit more threatening, saying that bring harm to this one's man at your own peril, rash one. And Wanda immediately is like, what? Huh? Your man? Hold it. Now, I know you broke up with the Swordsman, and that's who you came with when both of you joined the Avengers. But then apparently Mantis was also making a play for the Vision. And even though Scarlet Witch and the Vision were kind of like going through some kind of growing pains with their relationship, and Scarlet Witch was also kind of a little surly at this time. Nevertheless, she doesn't feel like she actually surrendered or gave up on the Vision. And and Scarlet Witch is throwing a little shade, saying, quote, neither he nor I heard a thing about it. So kind of saying that, Mantis has this in her head. That piece of plastic is mine. Mantis is kind of pointing out, listen, you have no claims on him. And if you do, he's really suffering under your love. And that, that man of plastic, he needs a real woman like me. And so the thing is, these two are kind of fighting it out here over this guy, and then, it's kind of fascinating here. This kind of does fail the Bechdel test, in that this is a test where if you have two female characters that are named, do they have a conversation that doesn't involve a man? And this whole interaction is, they're just fighting over the Vision like they're high school kids. Again, some beautiful artwork by Dave Cockrum. Beautiful face here. Wanda's Scarlet Witch is really throwing some shade here, saying that you're saying that I left a mess. What about the mess you have with the Swordsman? So Mantis is making it clear that she doesn't view the Swordsman as her man anymore, saying that she feels that he's too weak and not enough of a man. Can you imagine losing out to plastic? But nevertheless, Kang is yelling, silence. The only man in your lives now is me. So cease this raucous prattle. Okay, so there's some really kind of good supervillain dialogue, no matter how badly I delivered it.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Again, this is like one of the really nice things. There is that component of sexism in these comics, and there's also a little bit of kind of maybe fetishizing Asian women. One of the problematic things about some of Steve Englehart's writing during this time. So anyway, we'll go back to China. We see the Avengers. They're battling the Macrobot powered by Iron Man. This is much more powerful. Hawkeye is thinking that the stunt that he had done with the Vision Macrobot would work on the Iron Man Macrobot. He finds out painfully it's not the case. Hawkeye notes that was a bad move on his part. Swordsman kind of schools him, saying, listen, that's not how you approach it. Let me try. And the Macrobot immediately throws the Swordsman off balance here. Again, the Swordsman, his confidence is really low at this point. So, this is something that would pretty much happen to any hero fighting this type of opponent, but nevertheless, Swordsman's really taking it hard. And Ramatut is making the point that the Macrobot is heading toward them. Because even though Kang kind of underestimated incognito Ramatut, he's not doing it this time. He's making sure he's going to murk this guy. Because, he doesn't want any surprises. He kind of learns his lessons, Kang. The Vision, he's a bit more powered now. So he does have enough battery power to actually take on the Macrobot. And what he does, he plans on using his ability to change his body density to actually go through the Macrobot and then to slightly materialize as he's in the person. This usually creates kind of a shock to the system. And usually some of those shocks are powerful enough to kind of incapacitate whoever he's trying to stop this way, the Vision. However, Kang has a defense against this. So when the Vision tries to change his body density to like near intangibility, the Vision stopped. Now there's kind of a mistake here. The dialogue box mentions that had the Vision succeeded in what he wanted to do, he would have actually killed Tony Stark. Because apparently that shock of, the Vision suddenly materializing, in a person would have been too much for him. But the thing is that they had already established a little earlier that Tony Stark no longer needs his chest plate to keep his weak heart running. So the shock that would have killed Tony Stark, according to Steve Englehart, was still that weak. But Marvel had already established through an operation that his heart is strong enough that basically, acts as a normal person's heart. So they kind of took that conceit away from Iron Man. But no one told Steve Englehart. And we see the Vision here. He realizes he has to do something different. And what he does is that he figures that the force field that stopped him might have been designed specifically to stop his body, but not necessarily his clothing. So one of the things that the Vision has been doing recently is actually using his cloak to enter a body rather than his own body. So he puts his cloak into the through the Macrobot, and this is presumably also in Tony Stark's body. It starts to solidify, and it creates this huge explosion of power. It turns out that the explosion was able to destroy the Macrobot from inside out. But Iron Man himself isn't hurt. He's just knocked unconscious. Hawkeye, he reintroduces himself to Iron Man. Iron Man, Tony Stark isn't dead, but he still needs a charge because his body armor, most of the energies had been absorbed from the Macrobot, so he kind of has this heavy suit of armor that can't really move itself unless it's fully charged. We see Kang here. He's livid now because Plan A and Plan B were shot. However, Kang kind of has to improvise here. He decides he's going to forego going to Moscow and then use the Thor Macrobot on them. And he decides he's going to make his stand in the Forbidden City here. And so basically he sends out the Thor Macrobot. And again, some really nice artwork. I enjoy the way the Macrobot is kind of like coming out of Kang's ship here, because it really gives it a feeling of weight and fear. And the Kang outfit, which is not always one of the best designed costumes in Marvel, nevertheless looks really good here, drawn by Dave Cockrum. So anyway, the art is starting to change here a little bit. Maybe, because I think what happened was that Dave Cockrum, not only did he draw the comic, he inked the comic. So this is one of the things that was difficult, because when Englehart had to make the change of artists, because the thing is, it's not like Cockrum gave them, the pencils and they can kind of erase and maybe change things a little. Englehart was getting back inked pages back. So he either had to cut them out or he had to throw them out altogether. And I got a feeling that this is where some of the artwork stops being Dave Cockrum. So anyway, obviously the Macrobot powered by Thor is really powerful. So these guys really have their hands full. The Vision is pretty much close to full strength. He may be a little bit down. Iron Man, he has no energy, so he's kind of like completely out of the fight here. Kang thinks this is the best moment to strike, because again, Kang goes after the low-hanging fruit. He's made it clear from his conquering career. He goes for the low-hanging fruit. He sees Iron Man. He sees that he's down, and he thinks Iron Man's easy pickings. So the Thor Macrobot picks up Iron Man. But the problem is that the Macrobot in building up the energy to destroy Iron Man's able to absorb that energy and use it as a battery source. So basically right now, Iron Man looks like he's going to be disintegrated when actually he's really recharging here. Hawkeye doesn't see this. He sees, he thinks Iron Man's really going to take it. However, Swordsman points out that, listen, I fought this guy. This guy's pretty savvy. He kind of thinks things out. So he also has a little bit of spunk in him. He must have something, up his sleeve. And that's exactly what happens, because now Iron Man is starting to re-energize using the Macrobot's powers. Kang realizes this, that he kind of got tricked and snookered here, but it's too late, because Iron Man broke out of the Thor Macrobot's clutches. We see the Vision here. The Vision frees the ladies. So with one blast, the Vision is able to destroy these 3 tubes. It doesn't look like either one of these 2 young women, Scarlet Witch and Mantis, they weren't really paying that much attention to Agatha Harkness. It looks like the Vision grabbed her. He might have picked her up off the ground there. And again, the artwork is starting to change here and looking more like Neil Adams. And we see the two women get into action. Wanda is really looking to finish off Kang. She's probably really disgusted by Kang's plan there. Again, it was pretty sexist. I mean, it's basically forced SA that was a part of Kang's plan there. And there are actually a few Bronze Age comic books where that played out, or that was part of the plan, and I'll be looking at some of those. It turns out the women are still on the outs, so they're still fighting with each other, even though they're facing off against Kang's Macrobot. We see the Thor Macrobot. It's taking a real punishing blast from Scarlet Witch. Everyone's kind of impressed by what the Scarlet Witch did, because normally she doesn't do things this violently or this destructively, and they've never seen her empowered like this. Again, I guess maybe one of the points for Steve Englehart was that he did empower the Scarlet Witch. The Macrobot, obviously powered by Thor, was able to hold up against that attack. Again, Hawkeye is mentioning how much Scarlet Witch had changed. Mantis, she goes feet first against the Thor Macrobot. This is showing definitely more courage than ability, because I don't think her power set is set up for dealing with like Thor level power. Next, we got a full page of the Avengers attacking the Macrobot. I'm suspecting that it's around here that Cockrum's art started disappearing. Like Steve Englehart took some of those pages and kind of put them in the bottom of his desk drawer. Because this doesn't really look like Steve. This doesn't look like Dave Cockrum art or inks. Then we turn to the next page. Now it's really starting to look like Neil Adams here, and we see that there's a large meteorite that's like circling the Earth. Scarlet Witch is able to sense that this meteorite is there, and she's able to pull it down, and it makes a direct hit with the Macrobot. So again, this is the Scarlet Witch becoming really powerful. This is like something that you would see from the Phoenix in the X-Men. And again, the artwork is beautiful. It's definitely Neil Adams. This is not Dave Cockrum inks. We see that the meteorite that almost hit Mantis, because Mantis is on top of the Thor Macrobot's head here. So she got very close to being whacked with that thing. She notes that. But again, everyone's kind of impressed with how powerful Scarlet Witch is. Mantis is noting that the Macrobot may not be fully defeated yet. Ramatut, he goes about opening up the Macrobot, since he's the guy who designed these things. And they release Thor from it. And we see that Thor, he actually kind of looks a little peevish here. And this is beautiful artwork, definitely Neil Adams here. Looks like Thor has kind of handled all that power absorption better than the Vision or Iron Man, although he's still kind of feeling it here. So finally, we see Kang and Ramatut. They're facing off with each other. Ramatut is still incognito, and Kang doesn't recognize him. However, Kang doesn't like the tone of this guy's voice, because Kang's like, listen, who the hell are you? Who exactly are you to talk back to me? And then Kang just decides to disintegrate his clothing to see exactly who this guy is. And he's shocked to see that it's actually an older version of himself. And then we get some expository dialogue where Ramatut explains his motivation to Kang. So, and Kang is absolutely livid because the version of Kang that came to that realization that conquest wasn't, all that great. That's decades later than the Kang now. The Kang now, he isn't buying that. I mean, think about the stuff that if you could talk to your past self and how difficult your past self would be with yourself, it's kind of what Kang is going through. So again, this is a nice little psychological study from Steve Englehart. See kind of an action page here where Ramatut and Kang are kind of just duking it out. Again, remember, this is the mid-'70s. Boxing was huge at this time. We see some kind of somewhat loosely related images that are associated with these two characters. This seems to be kind of like space filler, to be honest. Steve Englehart must have tossed out at least 3 pages, because this is definitely nothing but filler here. And it's kind of more filler, although this is more understandable, where the Celestial Madonna has been revealed. Whatever the mechanism for revealing the Celestial Madonna is, it's happening. Everyone knows it at this point. And it turns out to be Mantis. Again, some beautiful artwork here of Mantis. This might have been Dave Cockrum here, but my guess is that not, because it doesn't look like his inks. We see Mantis is both the observer and the object of the event going on. Again, there might have been some confusion with the plotting here. So anyway, Kang finally knows that Mantis is the Madonna. That's the prize that he's been fighting for. And Kang is also a little confused. He's confused why an older future version of himself is coming back to the past, just like I'm confused. So both me and Kang are kind of confused about what Steve Englehart's doing. Ramatut is saying that he had to make sure that Kang did not succeed in this mission, even though the timeline that Ramatut was living in, he did not succeed in. But again, you just simply accept what you've been given. So the two are facing off. Past Kang is furious, saying that since you told me what's going to happen, I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen, and that he just will not allow it through sheer will. Ramatut, looking like he was drawn by Neil Adams, tells Kang that, listen, your future is inevitable, and it won't happen, and you just need to kind of simply accept it. Which, by the way, Ramatut knows that this version of Kang is not going to accept that. Again, so I think some really nice supervillain dialogue here from Kang. And he says that, listen, if I can't have her, if I can't leave with my prize, no one can have her. So Kang is basically going to murk the Virgin Mary here. And Mantis is saying, listen, I never expected this honor. She's like the I guess the beauty pageant winner who wins if it's I never expected to win this. But Mantis is also saying that what Ramatut is saying is true. So basically Mantis is kind of signing off to what Ramatut is saying, again, your path has already been written. So there's no use. Don't kill me. Just kind of give it up, dude. However, Kang is not hearing that. He's again determined to murk this woman. If he can't have her, no one's going to have her. However, at that moment, the swordsman, who was involved with Mantis romantically, but they had since broken up. He sees this. He breaks in to kind of just shield Mantis from what Kang is doing. Now, at this point, this kind of surprises Kang, and this allows Ramatut to tackle Kang. However, Kang is still able to get his shot off, but it didn't hit his intended target. Because basically what happened, the swordsman is engulfed in this ray, and he looks like he got the brunt of it, the entire brunt of it. The other members of the Avengers, they're shocked by what they see. Ramatut, he's kind of kicking himself, because this was sort of the one thing he was hoping to avoid. If he could change history in any way, the one thing he wanted was for Kang not to kill the swordsman, but that happened too late. So anyway, the two, it looks like they're transported to another place in time where they can continue their battles. So anyway, we see the Avengers, they stand victorious. However, they know that this victory came at a great cost. Because one of their members here he's not going to make it out. And we see Swordsman and Mantis, they're kind of having their West Side Story moment here. Swordsman is trying to hang on just long enough to let his feelings be known. But he's telling her, listen, this is it for me. Mantis is wow, she is really taking a great deal of weight on this. We see Mantis here, she's bearing her soul. She's actually taking most of the blame for how badly their relationship ended. Saying, no, my love, this one must right the wrong she has done to you. She was young, proud, and she used you so badly. She sees it now. Okay, one thing about the dialogue here. Most of the Marvel staff, it turned out, hated the Mantis character. And one of the reasons why was Steve Englehart always wrote her as her speaking about herself in the third person. So she would say dialogue like this one. So she would speak to herself in the third person, and this kind of irritated a lot of the Marvel staff. So when this character had left the Marvel Universe, no one was really that sad about it. However, we see the swordsman, he's kind of bearing his soul. He kind of views himself as kind of a loser. So, he kind of left this planet in a bad way. And he feels like he's just one of those people who just doesn't count. He was, kind of the guy who, he was the example that you didn't want to follow. And that's how he felt that his life played out. The other Avengers, they don't agree with that. They said, listen, you are a member of this team. And, every Avenger counts. Every one of them. Even the weakest one we've ever had. And, that's it. And that's the end of the story. And the copy that I have doesn't have any letters or the Marvel checklist or any ads. So, that's it. That's my review of Giant Size Avengers number 2. And I hope to have more reviews up soon. Bye.